this was going to go. This is a show that's more about you than it is me. This is the opportunity for you to call in. This is the opportunity for you to voice your opinions. This is the opportunity for you to ask a question in regards to the topic. You know, all likes, all teams, all people, all spectators, whatever the case is, if you're here, you're in the chat, you have the opportunity to do so. Now, the way that this goes is like so. You need to have a desktop or a laptop in order to participate in the live call-in or the live chat in studio. If you're going to stay over on the YouTube, as we're live there as well, cool. You can stay over there, get in the live chat. I'll do my best to try to manage that. I do have moderators active. They will do their best to try to notify me when super chats are there because people are earning points toward their VIP box. Well, there's not one up there right now because I shipped it out. And we'll get going on that. So when you do the live calling, you'll click the link. Now, there's a link in the description, and there's a link that's pinned in the live chat. You'll click that link. It'll bring you over into the studio. You might as well go ahead and mute YouTube because you're already going to have audio and video when you're in studio's audience. Then you can go ahead and click the live call in, type in a premiere or a preliminary of your question, and I will bring you on, start the clock. Your F1 minute will begin, and we are off on the hot takes. And that is exactly what we're doing. We about to wreck this up. We going live. We're not even playing no games. We about to straight triple wreck it up. We having a good time in here. We're not letting nobody sour that. So that's what we got going on. So, hey, let's get it started. We're going to start off with some soft topics first. All right. We're going to start off with some soft topics, go into that, and then we will go into questions and all this other stuff. So let's talk about Jean Todt. All right. It's been reported that Jean Todt was reached out to. Now, I did hear about the Toto. Like everybody's blasting about Toto, right? Everybody's saying that Toto reached out. But I also did hear that Toto was not the only person to reach out, that indeed Christian reached out. Now, I don't know why Christian would be reaching out to Jean Todt because the scandal that took place, I evidently benefited Red Bull and Max Verstappen definitely for his first championship. But the reason why Toto would reach out makes plenty of sense. I know plenty of you have voiced the fact that you think that indeed had Niki Lauda been present, that this probably would not have taken place. Now, I don't know how true that is. I don't know if Niki Lauda would have had enough pull to derail that situation that happened and then, well, not derail it. It was already derailed, but correct it, put it back on track, make everything right, and have the Formula One series not looking like such a debacle. But either way it goes, Niki Lauda, rest his peace. He isn't here. I understand you all saying that. Jean Todt was here. They reached out, Toto reached out, and he refused to help. He was not going to interfere. I don't know how you all feel about that, but I think that if you had the possibility of influencing something to be corrected, that you would do so if you were in favor of doing so, if you were in favor of making something right that had been done wrong. Now, if you weren't in favor of it and you were in favor of somebody benefited from something that was done wrong, then of course you wouldn't interfere. Or the other thing, because I want to keep it honest, I want to keep it even keel with Jean Todt, is that maybe you didn't interfere because you just felt like, hey, it's not my place anymore. Not the acting. I don't have the acting chair at this point in time. I don't want to get involved. I can't blame them for that. Some people don't want to step on the front line. Some people probably wouldn't even want to step into that. And if you saw what's wrong, do you step into it with a heart and not willing to take it out the rest of the way? That would be a big question. Do you have the heart to take it all the way to the max, take it completely where it needs to go, and make things right? Because you can't just start off in that situation and then kind of bail out. You look cheesy. So Jean Todt, I don't blame him. Toto reached out. That's the newest news circulating, and it has risen. Now let's go into our other soft topic because we just getting started here. Don't forget, you can live call in even on soft intro topics, and then we're going to hit our main segments. As you see right there, we're going to start off with the F1 Academy. They got their full lockup. So let's get into our next soft topic, which is the AGPC. We talked about this, right? The Australian Grand Prix. We talked about this situation. They definitely got summoned because they did not have the correct safety procedures in place to not only protect spectators, but also intellectual property, i.e. the car of the Formula One teams, and especially the car of Haas. All right, Nico Hülkenberg. Okay, he had his car out there. They didn't have the proper security in place. Spectators were able to get close to or access that car. The car was in a unsafe mode. It could have caused damage to people or the car itself. But now there are pictures and videos rising to the top of spectators destroying track property. So what I would say in the event, and I'm definitely gonna say this, like
It's like that.
that's crazy. That should not be happening. That should not be happening at all. You got stuff like that going on. It doesn't look good for the spectators. One, it only takes one person to screw it up for everybody. All right. Just like we had the one person throw a flare at the Austria GP, and that looked crazy. Okay. That could have damaged not only a spectator if he didn't make it beyond the spectating seating, but it could have damaged the driver depending on how fast that driver was coming across, and that flare landed in the driver's lap. And who knows what that could have also rolled into. But now you have spectators destroying track property. What is up with that? So at this point in time, knowing that now let's say Australia, the commission, they did everything right, right? They had all the safety protocols. Even if you got everything in place that you should, we all know that if things can happen, they will happen by law, right? So then we wouldn't really be looking at them too much as a responsibility for what took place. But the fact that they were already summoned for a situation they already admitted to, they didn't have the safety protocols in place that they should have had in. Now I think they share a little bit of responsibility in that, right? So now at this point in time, what do you all think? Is this something that you would say, hey, you're going to have to pay a hefty fine? Do you think that the AGPC should pay a hefty fine? Do you think that in light of them not following the proper security protocols, not only was intellectual property able to be accessed by spectators, but spectators were also in risk? We also had a spectator that was damaged or injured due to flying debris off a car. Now we got pictures and video arising of spectators tearing up, destroying Formula One property. Is this something where you say you're paying a hefty fine, or do we go as far to say, you know what? You're off the calendar for the next championship competing season? Is it that serious? Is it that serious? To me, it could be that serious, because in the military, you have a thing that's called a mishap. It's something that could have happened but didn't happen, but a certain amount of actions did happen. It just didn't get to its worstest point, which means it's a mishap, right? But you're still going to be punished or looked at as it could have been the worst extent, and we have to take that in consideration. Although it didn't get there, it could have got there. And the fact that it could have got there, or the probability that it could have got there, puts you in a situation where you're going to be responsible for that. So I don't know, but we'll see what happens. Will, we got a live call in. Will's going to take his opportunity for his F1 minute, and here we go.
How's it going?
What's up, brother Will? What's happening?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Hey, man, I'm about to start your F1 minute, bro. You already know. I ain't got to explain it to you, and boom, you on. What's up?
Let's get to it. So this whole entire thing with track safety, Australia is one in many times where there have been instances where there's been things that have happened on the track, maybe off track. We've seen things in Austria with harassment, of course, the flares, things like that occurred. You can go all the way back to 2000 in Monza with Schumacher when he was coming down the main straight after winning a race, and there were hundreds of the Tifosi all over the track. He had to literally part the crowd like it was the Red Sea just to get back to the starting position on the grid. And I think with Australia, they did have some things that they wanted to have them, implement and do by June 30th. So they have to work with the Victoria Police, figure out what happened there. They want them to put in a bunch of different things to make sure it doesn't happen again. Basically do a full investigation and come back with a report and say, hey, this won't happen again. We put these things in place to fix it. So I think if they can't get that done by June 30th, maybe then at that point it becomes a fine. Maybe they then take that off the calendar until they can put those things in place to fix it. There's a lot of different tracks and a lot of places that are vying for this calendar for F1, and I can think of a few circuits that would definitely step up if there was an open position.
Boom! There's Will, always the man and the place to be to jump it off. Will, appreciate you very much. You know you always welcome back, brother. Will makes a very good point. They do have a certain date that they asked that the board give them until they make these changes. And you do have, Will made a very good point. Will's always making good points. And listen, don't let Will's already 3-time back-to-back quality trivia winner. All right, he already 3 times back-to-back quality trivia winner. Don't let Will take all the luxury. And Jay London, big shout out for the super chat. Jay London says F1 and the FIA have got to get their stuff together, shaking my head. Now, on any other show, any other Wolfpack series show, I would go ahead and fill in the blank with the shaking my head and stuff together. But we on F1 minute. We're trying to get this thing to grow a bit more in the public eye. So I'm going to refrain from using some Wolfpack language. All right. You know what I'm saying? But yes, Will makes a very good point. Will always makes very good points. and we'll see what happens with them going forward. Now, let's get in. I'm going to say this again. This show is more about you than it is me. It is your opportunity to call in. I'm not going to stop anybody from calling in. I'm not going to stop Will from having, if he wants 1,000 chances, as long as he wants to come back on and have his F1 minute. It is your duty, your diligence. You should do your due diligence to call in. If you find yourself feeling some way about topics, and then you find yourself doing a bunch of comments in the comment section, why didn't you come on F1 Minute and verbally, visually voice that? You don't necessarily have to have your camera on. You can still go on audio, or you can send your question in through the live chat as a call. I can read it, then hang it up and read it for you, and then answer. It's all up to you. But I developed this series to bring you into the light so that your perspectives, your opinions can be shared amongst the world as well as the platform, all right? So let's go ahead and get into this topic, the F1 Academy. The F1 Academy, if you're not familiar with it, if you don't have much knowledge about it, it is a new series that is in line with the Formula Series. Now, before then, you probably knew, and if you didn't know, we're just going to say it, the W Series. The W Series was not in a direct path to lead you into the Formula Series. Now, the W Series was a racing series for women. They had teams in there with abundant amounts of names. They really had no real attachment to Formula Series like M&P. You got Carlin, you got Perma. They didn't have none of those in there, right? So now Formula One has decided to build a series that's in line with other Formula One series. All right, Formula Series. Okay, so Formula One's a part of that series. So you got F3. So really how it's going to go, you're going to have F1 Academy, you're going to have F3, F2, F1. Their intentions, and I use that word strictly, their intentions, because I question some of their intentions in some areas. So their intentions are to develop this so that they can bring women in and get them the exposure they need to the organizational side of how F-Series campaigns are ran. They get exposure as far as marketing and advertisement and sponsorship. They also get exposed to the environment that a Formula Series, Formula One, Formula Two, Formula Three would need you to have in order for you to participate or function in that environment. So this is good, right? Their intent is good. Like now we have a direct correlation, a direct handshake from women being able to participate in a level of motorsports that could segue them in to the higher F series of motorsport, because this is the F1 Academy. Their next step would be F3, which they're claiming in the next 2 or 3 years. They're expecting to have a woman, a female driver from the F1 Academy graduate up or work their way up and get into F3. Well, we already know what happened to the W Series in 2022. I was there at COTA when it happened, and the W Series didn't get a chance to race because financially they fell out, unable to continue on with their season. Jamie Chadwick, salute to her, participating over there in Indy Next, doing her thing. And I've made this point that I think Jamie Chadwick's move is an upgrade compared to if she went from the W Series to the F1 Academy. All right. Now, the F1 Academy have 3 cars, 3 seats per team. All right. These teams that we very well know, other inspired or elite drivers that now today participate in Formula One, have come from these teams. All right. M&P won the F2, I believe, F2 championship in 2022. Okay. Colton Herter was going to be coming up from Indy. He didn't. Then we had Drugovich. He's now with Aston Martin, and he came from the F2 champion. So we know that this system works. But does it work for women? Will it work for women? Do you think it's going to work for women? I'm going to give a couple of reasons why I think I'm a little suspect if it's going to fully work for our women out here participating in motorsports, which I would love to see. I don't know, like Jessica Hawkins is at Aston Martin. What is she doing? What is she doing? She's there all the time. What is she doing? We've seen Jamie Chadwick in the garage of Williams, but what are they doing with her? To me, nothing. And that's, to me, a criminal. So I want to know if it is such, what is the main, I'm going to say this first. What is the main insult? And I call it an insult. Some people call it a negative that most use, or I'll say a lot of people use in regards to women not being able to participate in the higher levels of the Formula Series. They say, you know what? They're not equal to their counterpart, to their men, to the males. They can't participate. Oh, we got Rusty Dog. Thoughts about new rules favoring Red Bull and FIA stopping merch dominance since 2021. I tell you what, Rusty, you hold on to that. I tell you what, we're gonna let Rusty come in, and then I'm gonna jump back because I don't want him to miss his opportunity. So I'm gonna give him his F1 minute. Rusty says is not so okay, he's not supported, but we want to talk about that. So that's fine. So he's not supported. He needs to go ahead and get onto a laptop or a desktop. He's calling in from his phone, but I did see it. So in regards to that, we will bring that up. So Rusty, if you could bring that question to me a little bit later in the next segment, which we will be talking about a Red Bull topic, and I'll make sure to read that. Will is calling in right now about W Series, and that's the topic we're on. So I'm bringing him on right now. Here we go. Will's going to get his F1 minute. No shot to you, Rusty Dog. Go ahead and just get on a laptop or a desktop, and you got it. Will, you on your F1 minute. Go.
All right. So in regards to the W Series, the first thing I want to do is give a shout out to Susie Wolf, who is right now the director of W Series, has been the driving force behind this, get this thing put together, has plenty of motorsport experience, more than Toto, has way more experience, has driven in the Formula Series before, and was, as we all know, a test driver for Williams back in the 2010s. And she also was the CEO and TP over at, I believe it was Venturi Racing for Formula E, and they placed second in 2022. So she's got a lot of experience there. I think as far as the W Series goes, it's a good feeder series from karting into basically if it was Formula 4. It's the same Formula 4 chassis. So this gives them more of a chance to actually feed into the Formula Series by having them go from karting into the F1 Academy rather than go straight into Formula 4 because there seems to be some issues there. So it gives them a chance. There's not as much money they have to put up. $150,000 is subsidized by F1, by Formula 1. And just for my picks, I'm looking out for, there's a couple people I'm looking for. The Kabasi sisters with Emily DeHuce, I think they'll be good. And Wilfred Grant, I think he'll also be pretty good, pretty young. So I'm looking at a couple of different people coming up through the ranks.
Bet. I like that. Will coming with some people he's looking for. Now, don't listen, Will. Don't be like your brother Galactus. He only giving them 3 races, and Galactus said you out of there for the rookies. But Galactus is a hard boss. You got 3 races to prove to him, and if you don't prove it to him, you're out of there. So yes, like Will said, he's looking for some people, and there is a certain avenue that we're looking to go in there as far as, and we got some super chats, so I'm going to read these in the YouTube. Jesse James Bell, big shout out, my brother, says, I'm back. Missed you, Jay, and the family. Missed you too. Rusty, no problem with your webcam. Just go ahead and give me that question in a little bit, and I'll make sure to read that off. So yes, like Will said, there, and I'm glad he said that about the platform, like the F4, and I think that's the Titleist chassis, I believe, that they're using in the F4, okay? So that is another one of my kind of quirks. Like if you look at F1 Academy from the W Series, those chassis, it's a considerable drop in horsepower going into the F1 Academy car coming out of a W Series car. Now, like we'll say, you're coming out of karting, you're going to go into F1 Academy. But they also said they're going to use the W Series. It's kind of like a farm team. You can kind of come through there, you know, like there's a feeder series. But I question, why would you drop the horsepower of that car to that degree and have such a deficiency? Don't they also need to get used to that amount of horsepower to be a little bit more closer to what they're going to experience in F3? Because you're talking about going from karting to the F1 Academy to F3, or from karting to the W Series to F1 Academy, which has a slight drop in horsepower, and then back up in horsepower to F3. I'm a little bit disconnected there, although I'm pretty sure there's a method to the madness. But my biggest point, like I was making, and my biggest quirk, not so much a problem, is the fact, my problem is people use this to strike women as far as getting involved in elite motorsports. They say they're not as good as men, and that's false. They say that women can't handle G-forces, and that's false. I mean, we have women fighter pilots in F-22s, F-18 Super Hornets. Don't tell me that women can't handle G-forces. They handle a lot of things that men body don't even have the opportunity to handle. I'm going to say that, right? I'm going to leave it right there because that's a fact. So you have 3 seats on each team, I think. And let me know what you all think in the audience. Come on and tell me what you think. I think that one of those seats should have been mandatory to have a male in. That way, not saying because men should have the right to participate in that. Men already have the luxuries to participate in all the other sports, right? All the other levels. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying this. This is what I'm saying. That if they involved a male in at least one of 3 seats, you're talking about a seat in each team. You got 5 teams, 3 cars, 15 cars, all total. Give 5 of those seats in each team to a male so that then these women prove to you the stop clock does not lie. My times, my ability to handle the machinery at different circuits in comparison to my counterpart is just as equal or good. So why should they be allowed to have the opportunities that I, as a woman, as a female in motorsports, am not allowed to have if I can prove myself against them? If they don't have men in those seats, at least 1 out of 3 seats, 1/3 of the team, the women are not getting a chance to strike that pun off of the sheet, so that somebody can't come and say, you know what, we want you in F3, but we don't know if you can really compete with the men. Well, I competed with the men in F1 Academy, and you can see what my numbers are. Will's coming on, male drivers, here he goes. This is what I'm talking about. Y'all want to let Will eat? I'm going to let Will eat. I'm going to let Will cook. Will's going to cook. Here he goes. Will got his F1 minute. Bow, he's on the clock.
So I was thinking about that as you were going over, bringing in a male driver into the 3 drivers that are on each team right now, having 2 female drivers and have 1 male driver. And I started to think about it that probably would be a good idea. We know that there are a lot of people that come from karting that get signed to the bigger, the Formula One teams early on. Case in point, like a Lewis Hamilton who was signed at 13 and then worked his way up through the lower ranks through GP2 and all that to get to F1. So I was thinking that probably would work because these Formula One teams are associated with these younger drivers when they're in karting already. They have their junior driving academies and things like that. So they probably would be able to move over one of their already current on that roster. I think of Mercedes, for example. They have, I think, like 5 or 6, maybe 7 total people in the driving academy right now. That could give them an opportunity so they can slide into the Formula One Academy, get into a single seater rather than working through, maybe they're just, working on a simulator or doing something like that. And then they can slide into that 3rd spot. There's 15 days of testing. There's 21, I think it's like 21 races total over these 7 races. So 3 per event. I'd like to see Alex Powell get in there from Mercedes because that's the Jamaican sensation. I'm just trying to see a Jamaican out there. So,
Bow, Will going at it. Hey, man. Hey, Alex Palou, which I met that guy. Cool dude there. Definitely thought we'd see a little bit more of him in the McLaren garage, but haven't. Will agreeing with me on this point about at least implementing the males there so that the women can prove to the naysayers that they compete well and compete viciously against their counterparts, so they can't be strike down. Because I believe if your intent is to give these female drivers the experience of what it is going to be coming up, because in karting, they're there, right? My little one's at the karting track competing, and there's only 3 females there, and she's 1 of 2 right now in her class, and then there's an older female that competes in the upper class, and that's it. The rest of the entire day and the rest of the paddock and the rest of the grid are all males, but they're there competing with males. All right. Then they get out of karting and then we have this division. Why? I don't think it works. I think F1 Academy could have did a bit better job. And I hope that Susie Wolf listens. Big shout out to Susie. At least she responded back to me. I hope to have her on the show one day, that they find a way to do this so that nobody can say that women can't do it against the men. All right. Women fighter pilots are flying with men pilots. Young female and male karters are competing with female and male karters, okay? I don't want to hear this, and I want them to have a fair opportunity, and I don't want the naysayers to have a continuous opportunity to strike them down for something that I know that they can do, okay? So that is my drawback. That is it on the F1 Academy segment, and we're about to move into our next segment, and that's going to be the disrespect that we see between Sir Hamilton and Alonso. Now, I'm going to say this. I know the last picture we had at the GP. You had Alonso reaching across there, hand dapping it up with Lewis Hamilton. And a lot of people saying, that's what I would like to see. That is what I would like to see too. But if I'm going to see it, I want it to be genuine. I want it to be a genuine, motion of hey, we really here. I know we have our hard times, but I respect you. I'm going to tell you right now, 2007, Alonso blocking up Lewis Hamilton in the pits for over 10 seconds to ruin his qualifying lap, which really didn't change the end result of the race. I think Lewis still won that race, was ridiculous. Alonso passing out envelopes of money to derail Lewis Hamilton's campaign in the garage to mess around with his car and or his racing strategy is ridiculous. That's disrespectful. That's me punch you in your face disrespectful. I'm telling you. I find out that you running around a paddock paying people to mess with my car or my strategy, that's punch you in your face in the motorhome disrespectful. I'm just telling you right now. Then what do we got? This last season, we had Alonso criticize, disrespect Lewis Hamilton over the radio due to the incident they had, and says that he's an idiot. He can only drive from the front, which we all know that's fake. We saw what happened in Brazil, right? Everybody saw that Awesome Drive is historical. It's always going to be mentioned in time, okay? From the sprint race to the real race, okay? So we know that Lewis Hamilton is capable of driving from the back of the grid up to the front. We know this. So why Alonso would say it? Because he wants to be disrespectful. We've seen the blackface that his fans did for Lewis Hamilton in that race, right? We've seen this. We've seen what Alonso's fans have done to a member or caused a member of Aston Martin, then he joined, to just delete their account off Twitter because they were getting harassed due to their sexual preference. We saw Alonso. I mean, I'm still going on, right? I'm still going on about the disrespectful moments that Alonso has done in regards to Lewis Hamilton. We saw Alonso disrespect Lewis Hamilton. We got another super chat from Jesse James Bell. Big shout out to him again. He said, aviation life support was my job in the Navy. F-14 on that Tomcat, F-18 Super Hornet, Ura, and other AC aircraft women have higher tolerance on the G's that meant. Thank you. Thank you, Jesse James Bell, for sharing this experience and knowledge. They have a higher tolerance to handle G-forces within their body versus men. 15 years in the United States Navy and 2 years of Top Gun as a civilian. Jesse James Bell is talking from a professional level of expertise, and I appreciate you on that. Big shout out to Jesse James Bell. So, yes, what are we doing? Alonso said on a podcast disrespecting Lewis Hamilton about his clothes, about him being weird, about him being separated. There's no respect there. That's not a mutual respect. What you see right now is a driver, which is what I said has been almost 2 decades sober from drinking Wynn champagne, now on a campaign in the AMR 23, having a very blissful season, and he's in euphoria. He's happy. He's Gandhi. So guess what? Now he's going to be a little bit more like, yeah, buddy, I love you. No, you don't. You're just happy right now because you're in a position to win. All right. Now, this goes along with what I said, too. I mean, where was Alonso all these years? All right. If he's so great, where was he all these years? I'm just saying, a lot of people make a lot of remarks about other drivers not being great. It's only being the car. Well, where was great Alonso with 2 championships only, involved in Crashgate and other scandals? Where was he all this time? Alonso's happy that he has the opportunity to be on podium. Alonso's happy that he possibly has the opportunity to damn win a race. That does a lot. When good situations happen, people get happy. That does a lot. Big shout out to Blue Diva for the super chat. The car doesn't know the ginger. That is driving it. Hey, Blue Diva makes a very good point in regards to our last segment on the F1 Academy. The car is not aware of the driver's sex. It's not. It just knows nothing. It's a mechanical machine. How you handle it and how you take advantage of it is what matters. So do you all think that Alonso is being disrespectful, or do you think Lewis Hamilton and Alonso have this mutual respect that evidently Lewis Hamilton doesn't take part in disrespecting Alonso to this degree, and Alonso takes a heaping of it? Do you think that's mutual respect? Do you think Alonso really respects Lewis Hamilton? Because the remarks that he made against Lewis Hamilton in regards to their incident, he didn't make those same remarks in regards to Carlos Sainz. He didn't. Carlos spun him out, hit him in that corner, although I do think that the points and the penalty that Carlos got were unfair, and I will talk about that on the show on the YouTube. But he didn't have those very colorful things to say about Carlos. He didn't. He only had those to say about Lewis Hamilton. So, yeah, I think that it's not a mutual respect. I think that Alonso doing it's like that is disrespectful. And if it was me, I'm just telling you, we gonna have to have a left-right good night at some point in time. We got to see about each other. In the motorhome, we about to end up clashing. Bro, you're not gonna keep disrespecting me like that. RJ is calling in. He says, are F1 fans too entitled? Example, Charles Leclerc's most recent post regarding his home address being public with fans asking for autographs. Whoa, I'm gonna try to bring RJ in. RJ's gonna have his F1 minute to be able to talk. What's going on, RJ?
Nothing much. How's it going?
Bro, it's going all right. Now I see you got the Shure mic, so I'm about to bring you in for your F1 minute, and it's your time. Go.
Awesome. Love it. Well, most recent take here, Charles Leclerc going on Instagram asking, essentially fans, or saying rather, gathering beneath his apartment, ringing his bell, asking for pictures and autographs. He says he's happy, appreciates the support, but refrains from privacy from his home. Through the grapevine, heard more as this one fan in particular just constantly knocking on his door, ringing his doorbell, asking for it. I personally think fans have gotten way too entitled. I think social media is great to bring people together, but I think at the same point, it just creates this toxic culture in a lot of different ways. You look even back last year, Lando Norris, granted, who knows if it was a fan or not, getting mugged at a soccer or football game, losing almost I think it was close to like six-figure watch. Personally, on my end, newer fan of Formula One here. I just don't get it. I think this close level of fandom is great. I think any other sporting huge league in America, you're not going to get anywhere close to it besides maybe UFC, but that's its own thing. I think as fans in general, we're just a little too entitled overall, and I don't think it's a bad idea to ask for autographs. I just think we take it to the nth degree sometimes too much.
RJ for his first time beating the clock. Hey, big shout out, RJ. Listen, man, I'm happy to have you. Welcome to the episode. It's my first time seeing you. I hope it's not my last time seeing you. Even in this episode, feel free to call back in. I'm going to address what you said. Very good points, RJ. Love it.
Appreciate it.
So listen, RJ brings up a point. It's in topic. We're talking about respect, right? Are fans are they feeling way more entitled than they should be? I think RJ makes a point, and I think yes. Listen, don't you like people to respect your privacy? I'm talking to spectators and fans right now. Don't you like to have your privacy? When you're at the race, when you leave the race, you probably do. Let me just not use that example because you probably would say, yeah, I would love for the team principal to show up to my hotel and take a picture. So let me not use that one. Would you like a Formula One marshal to come to your room and say, you know what? Listen, we had a situation happen at the track. We need to inspect your bag. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't want your privacy invaded upon. Charles Leclerc is at his home. That's his place where he lays his head. That's where, if anywhere in his life, he should have peace and harmony. He should be able to escape Formula One as far as the environment. He's always going to be a Formula One driver until he retires. So it's not about him escaping his job or his profession. It's about him escaping the madness. Okay. He has to walk around already Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, deal with reporting, deal with answering questions from the publicizers or publishing companies, deal with answering questions from fans, report here, do photo ops there, see people in the paddock, see people in the pit lane, see people in the paddock club. He's already dealing with a lot. All these drivers do. Are you meaning to tell me that you think you're that entitled that you should be going to his home, his residence, his place of privacy, knocking and ringing his doorbell for autographs and pictures? I wish you might. I wish that I might be a Formula One driver and you do that to me. All right. If there was no other time that I would want to acquire dogs or canines and have a Presa Canaria or a Cane Corso or a Rottweiler waiting on you, hey, it would be then. I would have my dog bite you in your ass for invading my privacy, trespassing on my property, and asking me for pictures out of the blue, especially somebody knocking at my door at all times of night. Are you crazy? Yeah, you might be. If you haven't seen the movie Fan with Robert De Niro and Wesley Snipes, go watch that. That movie might tell you a little bit about how things get out of hand. We got Will calling in, watches, and Alonso. He's coming in. He's going to have his F1 minute. I'm about to press the clock. Let's go, Will. Make it happen, bro.
All right, so piggybacking on RJ's point for as far as the fans go and the thing that about the Lando Norris situation. So that also happened to Charles Leclerc last year in Italy. One of his Richard Milles was stole right off his wrist. And there was a whole thing where they had, footage of him actually chasing them in his 488 Pista, his special edition one that he drives around in Monaco, trying to go after the people that stole his watch. It's unfortunate that this has to happen. But I think what's happening is that the Formula One drivers are getting targeted because there are some channels out there. It's not these people's faults, but like Kim Millman, for example, he's a Formula One photographer, has a lot of different businesses going on, and he started a YouTube channel where he does a lot of stuff about the people's lives. It's almost like lifestyles of the rich and famous for like Formula One drivers, and he does put a lot of stuff on display, the cost and the watches that they actually have. These watches are part of watch deals that a lot of these Formula One teams have. So they have to have them on during interviews, things like that. So people see these, especially the Richard Milles. They're the most expensive ones.
Right.
These go well over $1 million sometimes. And so they see these and they target these Formula One drivers when they know they're at different events because social media. And that's why they usually end up.
Big shout out, Will. And that's your F1 minute. You know you're welcome to come back, bro. That's the point. Listen. Will brings up, RJ and Will just teamed up together to make a dynamic duo of one hell of a job of bringing up a very bad situation that doesn't have bad intents, but it results to situations where people, they can't handle responsibility and respect of others, feel entitled. If Kilman's doing like these pieces about talking about their watches, it's not saying that that's illegal, he's wrong for doing it, but it's saying that you're putting information out there, and anybody else could have put it out there too, right? So it's not like he's like directly and solely wrong for it, but you're part of putting information out there that now makes Formula One drivers a target. And who's to say they already want a target from being a Formula One driver and are elite athlete in any other sport? Because if you are in the public eye and you're good at what you do and you're on TV and people see you doing interviews, you're already a target to a degree. But when it comes to breaking down details of that person's life and the items that they have or have privileges to have, like Will said, deals, you got Patek Philippe, you got Richard Mille, you got all these watches, high-end watches. We're talking about millions, $500,000, $200,000, $250,000 watches, right? Who doesn't want a payday like that? Okay. Now you're having this report, like Will said, Charles having to chase down somebody, which, think about that. If he's chasing down somebody in his Ferrari, that's endangering his life only because he's trying to get back what's his. So where does it stop? People, you got to stop being disrespectful. I'm telling you right now, like that can get you capped. It can get you capped. We got Jeff calling in with a question about sprint race format. And I tell you what, Jeff, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and go to the next segment before I bring you on, because that is the next segment. So I'm going to let you be in line with what we're talking about, and I'm bringing you on right now for your F1 minute. So, Jeff, you know how this works. I'm going to start your clock. You got your F1 minute, and go.
I'm curious about why F1 is so hard. I enjoy the occasional sprint race, Spa, but it's enough. It's enough. I want to see guys with first of all, the wear and tear on drivers' bodies has got to increase exponentially when you're doing sprint race after sprint race and qualifying and then going 15 laps at 5 Gs. It's got to all be about the money. I can't think of another reason. You're going to bring more fans in. You're going to have more television viewership because now you get a mini race before a real race. And again, I'm fine with the occasional sprint race, but it's just too much. And plus, the wear and tear on the cars. How many transmissions you going to give them? 15? You're going to give them 10 engines a year? I don't think so.
Jeff, hey, I love it, brother. I absolutely love it, man. Hey, I'm glad to see you. It's my first time seeing you. Don't let it be my last time seeing you, even in this. And I see it behind you. I see it behind you. So I'm about to address your call, brother. Feel free to try it again. I really appreciate you. Here we go. Listen, Jeff calls in with a banger. He calls in with a banger. He's right. And this is where I was going to say, I'm not in a line. And matter of fact, let me give Jeff one of these, because he made a very good point. We're talking about wear and tear on the body, right? We just came out of a new era in 2022 where we were already talking about vertical acceleration and the fact that we were possibly talking about CTE being involved in these drivers having so much of a vibration going through their brain and their bodies and impacting their backs. These are things that could go on for lifelong and later on affect them, right? So where's the plan for that? Then we're also talking about additional wear and tear on the car. This is where, don't be surprised I'm saying this, okay? Because I'll say this and people will be like, oh, you don't. This is where Max and I align in this small scope right here, right? It's, to a degree, unnecessary. And like Jeff said, it's about the money. But I think that it's unnecessary unless they reformat it. I think there's a proper format for it to make more sense. I would say, and this is what I pose, I've done a video on this, and then I'm going to go to the top of this segment, because Jeff took us on a nitrous charged ramp right there, and he did a damn good job with it. And I love it. I want you all to keep calling in. Links in the description. They need to reformat the sprints. Jeff's right. This is really all about money, okay? I believe they issue teams a bit more money for them participating in the sprint. But what they didn't do is they didn't change the PU and RNC allocations. They didn't change those. Those are the same. And we already see a team in Red Bulls 50% through their RNC. We already see several teams are going and already 3 races in, they're already used 2 or 3 parts of their allocations in certain PU elements, and they only get 3 in some. They didn't change that. And this is why I said they should have changed that, given that there were already more races in this season. Why did you not increase the allocations for these teams so that they wouldn't face penalties so soon? But you want to put more stress, you want to put more workload, you want to put more races on them, but you don't want to open up the allocations, right? But then there's another point. You need to restructure the sprints. Formula One, I'm talking to you. FOM, I'm talking to you. Liberty Media, I'm talking to you. You need to reformat the sprint so it makes sense, okay? You got top teams going into the sprint. These top teams are already getting the points. So now you're just having them double dip. Come on now. Come on now. We have drivers who don't get any points at any part of the season. You don't think they're going to scrap like a dog for those points? This is where we will see less reserving and being a less like fierce on the track and see some dogs come out. Let's do this. Let's have the FP session, right? Then let's go ahead and have qualifying. Have qualifying, top 10 right there, qualifying. They go ahead, they're going to go in top 10 spots on the grid. That packing order is done. Now for you drivers who usually don't get a chance to have points and teams that usually don't get it. Rusty Dog, I see you. I'm bringing you in. Trust me. Don't get a time to have points. Now those 11 to 20 drivers get to go into the sprint race to battle it out and fight for points that they likely would not get in the regular race. I don't know if that's exactly the right way, but it definitely needs to be done. And Jeff definitely brought up a point. And now I'm bringing up Rusty Dog. Rusty Dog's going to take the opportunity to get their F1 minute. Rusty Dog, let me get you to go ahead and mute the YouTube so we don't get the echo, so that you're not ruined on your F1 minute. I'm about to start your clock right now, and here you go. Go ahead.
Hi, Wolfpack. Right, hope I can get this all in 1 minute. I just want to know what your thoughts are on the 2022 rules, the new rules favoring Red Bull because they are using ground effects cars, and of course the only person we know in the whole paddock that has an extensive knowledge of ground effects is Adrian Newey. So that's going to make Red Bull by default have an advantage over any other teams. True. And considering that people like us, I'm a Lewis fan, so people like us, we've had to listen to the other side telling us that Mercedes have had, an advantage with the hybrid rules since they came in 2014, and that was made Mercedes' advantage. Well, now that the argument for the other side, the ground effects, now they've got to listen to and accept that the same is working for them now. Same with the rocket ship argument. The rocket ship was all Lewis's, now the rocket ship is Max. It needs to be acknowledged in the same way.
Right. Hey, big shout out. And you beat it by 6 seconds, Rusty Dog. That means you quick, stupid, fast, man. So listen, don't let this be your last time calling in. I'm going to let your clock run out just in case. You feel free to call back in. I think that's a good point, so let me address that, all right? All right, so Rusty brings up a good point, and I got Will on the phone, and he's going to come in on the sprints. Yes. Even swap, no swindle. Even swap, no swindle, okay? It's good for him. Like, hey, give for take. At one point in time, hybrid, everybody's saying Mercedes. It was all in their advantage. But I think that that's a bit different, but it could not be, okay? But here we come into ground effects. We know that there are engineers on teams that have no clue about what ground effects did in Formula One way back when they introduced them. The only person that's active on the grid within engineering or head of and has the right to develop a car around that is Adrian Newey, and he is with Red Bull, supposed contractor, so they didn't have to try to include his money. But that's a cost cap thing. We're not going to go there. So is that something, and I see we got Will and Wildcat, and I'm going to get both of them. So is that something that's fair? Well, all spoils and war, it does happen. But listen, if you had so much to say about Mercedes being dominant, Mercedes having the upper hand in hybrid, and you thought it was okay that Mercedes fans listen to you, you now need to be okay listening to Mercedes fans say the truth about Red Bull. Red Bull breached the cost cap. Red Bull and Max Verstappen was gifted a championship in 2021 via a scandal in NDA Massey. Red Bull, it has the upper hand in ground effects because Adrian Newey has a fun knowledge of ground effects, successful with Williams and now successful with Red Bull. You need to be okay with hearing that because you had the same things to say in return. So Rusty, big shout out to that. We got Wildcat on the line. I'm gonna go ahead and get him in. Wildcat, I'm gonna start your clock, then I'm going to Will, bro. So here we go. Wildcat, you got your F1 minute, brother. Boom, let's go.
All right, so they want to talk about, everybody trying to figure out ways to that Red Bull's supposedly sandbagging, which I do believe they are. But to a point, I feel like the FIA reason they're pushing for more sprints to add to Formula One, that could potentially be to slow Red Bull down throughout the season. Because if you look at last year, go to say Brazil, Red Bull should have won Brazil. Mercedes didn't actually win Brazil. Red Bull actually just dropped the ball in Brazil because of lack of time to prep for the race. They did the same thing in Austria at your own home track. Leclerc put on a driving clinic all over the Red Bulls. So let's see why is it that Max is wanting to walk away? It's because Max doesn't have that experience to just jump in the car and go drive. Look at Lewis when it comes to say FP1 sessions. Lewis is always out here booking laps and putting in some time, arguably some of the best in FP1 sessions because Lewis has that experience. Alonso the same way. Bottas the same way. Sprints, they slow Red Bull down. Why not?
Oh, brother, good job. Let me address that. Wildcat takes us to the top right now as far as what that is being said. And listen, that is a point. If you didn't know, we started this segment off crazy because we got callers coming in and they got good points. So what it is Max Verstappen is threatening to walk away from Formula One due to more sprints being into Formula One. He doesn't like it. He's saying, you know what, if that's the way that this is going to go, I'm going to leave the sport. Have we not already heard too many times of this spoiled brat mentality from Max Verstappen threatening to not drink his water if he doesn't get candy before his meal, threatening to not drink his milk if he doesn't get cookies before he eats his meal? These things with Max Verstappen have been coming a little bit too soon. Like Max Verstappen just recently, like last season, he was talking about when he's going to retire. He's not going to be in there. He wants to go ahead and do other racing series. Now he's talking about leaving Formula One because of sprints. Listen, if you're going to leave because of sprints, Lewis Hamilton didn't leave after he got scandal, cheated, and robbed left and right. I didn't see Carlos putting in a chit to leave because he got a penalty and points on his license that other drivers dang well should have got. But Max Verstappen's threatening to leave because of sprint. And I think Wildcat brings up a very good point. Maybe Max Verstappen's not good at just getting in the car and making it happen. That could be true. I'm about to bring Will in and see what Will has to say. Will's going to take another F1 minute and let's go because I got like that to talk. Let's go, Will. F1 minute. Let's go.
So it's funny that we're talking about sprints right now because towards the end of this, of course, I always have a list of little fun things to bring in on the end, and it kind of ties into sprints, but we'll see towards the end. With the sprints, I'm looking at some of the things that are going off in chat, some of the things that people are saying, and it really is something that really doesn't add too much to the actual championship overall. It is something that's just more of a spectacle for the people that actually show up to the track, that go to these sprint events, that goes to the overall GP for the weekends.
Right.
And it becomes like a procession up front because it's damage limitation. They don't want to actually wreck out. It'll ruin their season, ruin their points if they're really going for a championship. So you know where everyone's going to pretty much fall in the pecking order. But you did raise a good point, and I think out of all the stuff I've seen so far, all the reports that have come out as far as what they're planning on doing, now they're pushing it to the Red Bull Ring in July. It was supposed to start in Baku, but it's not going to for certain reasons. And I think that's probably the most sense to actually have the lower half of the grid duke it out for some points. It's still interesting. It still brings in that level of entertainment that everyone's looking for, to not have maybe 3 practice sessions and all that. We get what they're trying to do to bring some a little bit more excitingness to the sport. So. Right. You might have the best ideas.
Thank you, brother, man. Thank you. I've been saying this. People don't listen to me. You shouldn't listen to me all the time because sometimes I can be crazy. But hey, I got it. Thanks, Will. So listen, we got some super chats on YouTube. Let me go over there. Big shout out to Galactics, making sure I stay on my thing. Who we got over there? We got Jesse James Bell. Talk about it. Jay, preach, young man. Preach on the boom shakalaka. Hey, man. Hey, listen, don't get me started on some Shaq raps. Jay London, sprint races suck. Jay London says that sprint races suck. And you know what? I thought they suck too. And they pretty much kind of do. They need to reformat them so they don't suck too much. So yeah, Jay London's got a major point. Wildcat's calling back in on this segment. Let's see what he's got to say. He says, I want my F1 minute again. Wildcat, you got your F1 minute, bro. So get ready. I'm about to load it up and then you're going to be able to go. So here we go. F1 minute, go.
All right. So they want to say, and it's true. Sprints are boring because we already know whoever's going to be at front in qualifying, aside from the fact of, you got Magnussen, getting out front in Brazil. He already knew he was screwed, but, hey, he got his little bit of fame.
Right.
Kudos to him and Haas for getting it right for once. But aside from that, you want to make sprints more interesting. Why not make a separate championship worth fighting for? A sprint drivers champion and a sprint constructors champion. And yes, let the let that bottom 10 half that didn't qualify in the points, Let them be the ones who duke it out. So you never know. Not every race is whoever's in the top 10 going to always be in the top 10 in qualifying for the sprint. So guess what? Now everybody gets a piece of the pot and they have a reason to actually fight going into the sprint with only 10 drivers on the track with a shorter race distance. So now you got drivers that are actually going to push on that limit and stay on that limit pretty much the whole weekend. And them same drivers may turn up after just racing on Saturday on the limit, and come in Sunday and be absolute fire on the track with something different that nobody knew they had.
Man, did we just become best friends? Did we just become best friends? I think we did, man. Hoorah to the Navy. Hey, that was a very good point. That was a very good point. I didn't even, are we brainstorming right now? Are we helping Formula One? Formula One needs to listen to Wolfpack and Wolfpack community. We are helping you come up with a way to reconstruct the sprint to actually make sense. And I'm not trying to rhyme or rap there. I'm just talking real sense, common sense, reasoning right here. Brainstorming is happening. Wildcat brings a very interesting point in. Should they include a sprint race championship at the end of the season? That was very interesting. I don't know. Let's see what you all say about it, especially in the comment section post the recording. But I think that was kind of interesting, and that's something that I didn't think about, and that actually could make it a bit more crazy. It could make it a bit more exciting. And that is literally what we want to see. More excitement without the risk of lives. These drivers are already risking their lives. Never go into a race wanting to see an accident. But in sprint, we want to see more of that fight. We want to see more tenacity. We want to see vicious drivers trying to do their best to be their best. And unless you format it right, they're just going to reserve themselves because they know this is not the main race. This is not where the big dogs are really going to play and where everything matters. But if you can reformat it, have it make more sense, have it mean more to the competitive side of these drivers, then you'll get more out of this product. You're already adding these races in Formula One for money, for monetary value. You're going to get more advertising spots. You know, Jeff brought up a very critical point. It's about money, and you're already causing and exposing these drivers to more dangers within the sport, more wear on their bodies, more wear and tear on these teams and these cars, but yet you haven't opened up the allocations. What are you doing that's going to take care of these drivers post their careers? Like, what's that package look like? We know what the NFL and the NBA do. What does the package for Formula One look like for drivers beyond the grid? All right, no pun intended. Don't send me any copyright claims for saying beyond the grid. I don't need any of that. But what does that package look like? How are you taking care of these drivers? If you're going to expose them to more races, more G-forces, more dangers, more wear and tear on their body, are you taking care of the Formula One drivers, given that you are just trying to monetize while you have them come through as products? I'm just asking. I just want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. And as we enter rounding third base, heading into home, I'm going to check the chat, make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Blue Diva says, with us now having 23 races, there's plenty of racing, so we don't need these boring sprint races. Keep it F1, not all this sprint rubbish DTS. Woo! Blue Diva saying, listen, y'all already at it. And remember I said this. I think initially it was 24 races because China got stricken off the calendar and 6 sprints. So I told you it was 30 races in all. Okay. Jesse James Bell says, remember back when I was young, they had a championship for turbo cars and the non-F1 cars, 2 championships. That tells us that Jesse James Bell is an OG watcher. He's an OG watcher. He talking about things that some of us probably don't even know about. Jesse James Bell, big shout out to you. Big supporter of the channel. Big shout out to Blue Diva, Sylvia Witt, Galacticus, Racer X210, and J Starship. My mods all trying to handle things and keep me on the even keel. And we're rounding third base, heading into home. And in the home, we going to talk about money. We finna talk about money, baby. We talking about not only money, we talking about why. Just a little bit wrinkle in here. Why did Mercedes do that? Mercedes, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Why did you have the GOAT driver in Formula One? Why did you have the most accomplished driver on the grid? One of the most accomplished drivers share right now, 7-time world champion, which some people would debate 8, 9, depending on some of these scandals you go back and look at. But statistically, accurately, I'm staying to 7-time world championship, Lewis Hamilton, give you feedback on a car and you not listen to him. And now, contract, we haven't seen it. Where's the contract? When is Lewis going to have a contract? Is it Lewis waiting to see what happens with Mercedes? Or is it Mercedes waiting to see if they want to sign Lewis? And right now, I saw a report today. Toto said there is no plan B. Our plan B is Lewis. Toto is saying that Lewis Hamilton is the only driver that we're looking to have on this team. And we got a super chat from Robert K. Christensen. What's going on, Robert K. Christensen? I still need you to get with me about your shirt. Super chat says, I don't like the sprints. No one cares, though. I care that you don't like the sprints. I listen to you, Robert. I listen to you. So this contract with Lewis, we're waiting to see what happens. So I'm more like I said, my question to you all, and I would like to hear your feedback on this. Is it more Lewis waiting to sign and develop a contract with Mercedes based on what they do, since we got reports saying that Mercedes did not listen to Lewis in regards to the development of the W13, their way segued and found its way into the W14? Or is it Mercedes deciding that, listen, we got young Russell, we're not sure about what we want to do, if we want to put this much money in Lewis Hamilton going forward? Do we want to look for new up-and-coming talent? Maybe somebody comes available. Is it that, or is it this? Which one do you think it is? I think it's the other way. I think Lewis Hamilton right now, partially, two things can be true. Partially more focused on trying to get this car on the rails because he wants his opportunity to do his thing. And I think also it's Lewis Hamilton not very happy about the fact you didn't listen to me and I told you. I know what a championship car feels like, and that didn't feel like that in the W13. So I don't know why you didn't listen to me, but now it's going to cost you on the contract. You know what I was saying? Yesterday's price is not today's price. Lewis Hamilton is like, you not giving me that check. Anyway, the check that I need, I don't care if he's two-time champion. Most recently, it's got clouds and thunderstorms and rain over it. It ain't all real legit. I need to be paid. When they look on driver salaries, Lewis Hamilton, my name need to be at the top of that. I need that check. I need that bag. Rusty's coming in. Rusty Dog is coming in. He says, do we still need DRS? Rusty, I'm going to give you your F1 minute. Talk about it.
Right. Hi. Simple one. With the advent of the new rules, again, going back to that, the 2022 rules, one of the stipulations of that was that the cars were going to be less aero dependent and they were not going to be so negatively affected in turbulent air of the car in front, therefore hopefully promoting easier overtaking. So my question is simply that. If those rules have worked the way the FIA intended them, that the cars could easily follow, do we now still need DRS?
Good point. Good question, Rusty. Good point. I'll tell you what, I'm going to answer that, and I'm probably going to take his 30 seconds to see if I can get it in. That question would be, maybe we don't, because we've seen them make passes and follow close, but does following close get you to the edge and ability to make a good pass? We know that they're going for entertainment and wow factor. The DRS showed us in Australia what that wow factor could do by adding another DRS zone, and we got a packed race there with a bunch of things happening. So I would say there is a place for it, but I think that they should do a press to pass and I beat the clock. Do a press to pass for DRS, and that's what should happen. Ooh, that's what it's like that. Will not the only person get nail the clock, and I did it in half the time. I'm challenging my brother because none of y'all want to challenge Will. I'm challenging Will. Big shout out to that. So we got another super chat. G5 MDS, we flying. VIP fam, what's on? Jay, glad to see you back, my brother. Thank you. I'm so glad and happy to be back. People don't know I love this. I love what I do, and Lewis Hamilton loves what he does. He's passionate about what he does, and the man says, "I'm not here to play around. I'm here to get crowns. I'm here to get titles." At this point in time in my career, I want the check to equal up to the real deck. And I guess what, we got Wildcat calling in. It ain't about the bag for Sir Lewis Hamilton, he says. And I'm going to let him say it himself. I'm going to let Wildcat tell you what he's talking about. He said it ain't about the bag. Wildcat, you got your F1 minute. Tell us what you're talking about.
All right. So when I say it's not about the bag for Lewis, it really isn't about the money at this point. This man done been in F1 long enough. He's got plenty of money sitting aside. He's got his money tied up in investments to keep him going for the long haul. It's not about the bag. He's not like Danny Rick running around chasing that bag. Lewis is looking at things of deja vu possibly coming back to repeat itself. And when I say that, he's looking at 07 and 08 dealing with Alonso's psycho ass. Excuse my language. That's
you good. Ass is permitted. Ass is permitted.
There ain't no filter. And then he's also looking at his time dealing with Nico Rosberg, who was supposed to be his good friend, who ended up pretty much stabbing him in the back in 2016, and Nico couldn't hack it, so Nico left after he won that one. So Lewis is looking at George and trying to figure out, is George going to try and be another Alonso or Nico, or is Mercedes going to get him in check real quick to help me get this eighth and then help George get his after the fact? That's why Lewis ain't signed. That's just my opinion on that.
Boof, and he beats the F1 clock, brother. So therein lies another perspective that adds to the pot of the delayed contract saga. And this is all hearsay. These are all opinions. These are all perspectives. Don't come here criticizing people for sharing what they think their opinions are. Unless you're sitting in the office, in the room, and you're talking to the legal team and you're talking to the team of Mercedes and you're coming up with these contractual agreements, shut your mouth. You're having opinions and perspectives too. And Wildcat brings up a decent one. Is it also included that Lewis is wondering or formulating in his mind, is Mercedes going to do what needs to be done as far as team structure in the 1 and 2 drivers to make sure that I get my eighth? Because you got your eighth. Mercedes, you got your eighth. And I would stand to question this. If Mercedes had not been able to get their constructor championship, their eighth constructors championship, because of what happened in AD 2021, would they have been more apt to fight for what should have been right to beginning when Lewis didn't get his driving championship? I wonder that. I do wonder that. Mercedes, you got your eighth plate, but Lewis didn't get his. And a lot of people say that Mercedes didn't go to bat as strong as they should have been for Lewis Hamilton. Is it because you got your plate and he didn't get his and you okay with that? If that's the case, there's another reason to refrain or to wait or to hesitate on signing an extension. And I'm telling you, like Wildcat said, it ain't about the bag, but it's going to be about the bag at the end of the day. If I'm going to pay and you got your way, that bag for me going to be a heavyweight. And I ain't trying to rob. I'm not a rapper. So that's the situation we got. Lewis Hamilton has signed a contract. I'm waiting to see what that contract's going to look like. Not so much as the monetary value, but the structure of it. Because I think that it might be a very interesting structure that keeps Lewis around, or that he wants to be around, kind of like Nicky was for Mercedes, as somebody who helps direct and go into, oh my gosh, is this Fernando Alonso calling in? We got Fernando Alonso calling in. I got to see who this is. You're going to get your F1 minute either way it goes. All right. They hung up. I was giving them the mic and they hung up. It might have been Alonso for real. It might have been Fernando Alonso for real. I don't know. But listen, whatever happened, Alonso or Fernando, go ahead and call back in. Just a joke. We have a good time here. I don't know if that might have been Fernando Alonso calling in. It was Fernando. I don't know if it was Alonso, but hey, if that was you, and even if it wasn't you, call back in. I don't know what happened. I started to give you the mic and then you hung up there. So hey, let's see what happens. But yeah, we got to see what's going to happen with this contract. I'm interested to see what the structure of the contract is going to look like in regards to that. So let me check Super Chats because we're also on the YouTube. And let me make sure I didn't miss anybody, because I like to give people their respect, give them their light to shine, because people come here and support this channel. So big shout out to all my supporters of the channel, all my Wolfpack family members, everybody, the viewers, subscribers, everybody that has participated in the live call-in show, the hottest live call-in show in Formula One, period, right now. And it's going to be as F1 Minute here at the Wolfpack platform. And I really salute everybody having the gumption to say, you know what? I got a point. I got a perspective. I got an opinion. Jay from Wolfpack Performance has supplied me with a stage, and I'm going to walk up those steps and I'm going to grab my mic and I'm going to spit those bars. And that's what you all did. So we'll wait and see what happens with Sir Lewis Hamilton and his contract. We're going to wait and see if Max is actually going to really walk away from the sport if he doesn't get his way with the sprint races, which I told you, some part I agree with that. And, you know, as you saw, me and Jeff talked about it, and he made some valid points on that. We're also going to see how much of this delightful personality Alonso has through the rest of the year if the AMR 23 or Aston Martin start to run into trouble and he stops winning races. Don't forget how that looked before, and what's going to happen with the F1 Academy. And I got Will right now with some fun stuff. He's bringing it to us as we close out. Here we go. Will, you are the last caller. Go ahead. You got your F1 minute, brother, and the clock starts now.
So, like I was saying before, the sprint race thing. So I've come up with this list. Bernie Eccleston and his crazy ideas, since he's back in the media. So we might as well talk about some of the crazy stuff this guy's come up with. 2003 lottery qualifying, where he would say the top 10 drivers, wherever they qualified, they would then mix it up and see that basically just didn't matter where they qualified, because they would just mix it up as a lottery, and that's where they started in the race. Wanted to do that. That didn't work. 2009 medal system. So, you know, they're giving out medals for the sprints. So I kind of think that was him basically still trying to get that back in there. They wanted to just give out medals. He did that because Lewis Hamilton won the championship in 08 and wanted the wanted to just give medals for first, second, and third. Whoever won the most races won the championship. He thought he shouldn't have won the championship, and he was trying to do that to basically eliminate that. 2010, shortcuts. Yes, he wanted shortcuts in 2010, almost like a backwards Joker lap, where you could then use that shortcut one lap, and that would basically catch it up and make things a little more interesting. Didn't do that. 2011, the sprinkler system. We've heard of that, where he wanted to put sprinklers at different tracks so they could predetermine the weather. I guess, random weather isn't better than predetermined. 80s, making pit stops for drivers that were basically they didn't make a lot of pit stops back then, so we wanted to add pit stops for drivers that were winning. 2016, shorter races, the break in between. This is the good one. 2016, have two races, not shorter, two races, because he said Americans had too short of an attention span, so we needed to have two shorter races rather than one. And of course, they didn't do that because we don't know how to pay attention for 2 hours worth of racing. And in 2016, he also wanted to make F1 more dangerous for the spectacle of the sport, add concrete barriers everywhere, so that would stop the drivers from going off on track limits. And when Alonso crashed in Melbourne in 2016, that crazy crash, he came out and said it would have been great if they would have brought out the tarps, as if it was way worse, because he climbed out the car, bring him to the hospital, and then announced later that he was okay, just so that all the fans would be held in suspense, because he said people like that. So just some ideas that crazy Bernie, when people say what he's saying right now makes sense, he's never made sense.
Yo, this Bernie, he just earned a new name from me. Bananas Bernie. Bernie is bananas. All right. He does a lot of things. To me, Bernie comes off as a bigot. I'm just going to say it. Like, Bernie comes off as a bigot with some of the things he said, some of his actions. And think about that. Bernie is okay with putting drivers at risk for the sake of entertainment and $1. Concrete barriers? Like, are you serious? Bring out the tarp to keep family members and our spectators in pause mode, wondering if a driver is physically okay or just passed. That is ridiculous. And if you recall the incident, I think it was Senna, when he had his collision, they delayed bringing that news out as far as what happened. And I think that was Senna. If it's not, forgive me, but still rest in peace to the drivers that had passed in Formula One. But they delayed bringing that news out. Like, the drivers didn't know until the race was over. And is that the good call to make? I don't know. Maybe for drivers so they can keep their mind in the game and compete. You don't have another situation. But Bernie talking about bringing the tarps out so people don't know if people are okay. Listen, this just is more of an indictment on this man's character and his lack of ability to even be needed in the sport of Formula One or any other sport for that matter, because that mind frame is not going to change anywhere it goes. And I'm not afraid to say it, because this is my show. This is my live show. This is F1 Minute, developed by Wolfpack Performance at Jay. And I'm going to say what I want to say. And I'm going to let you all come on and say your piece too. And that brings us to the end of another awesome episode. This is probably, we racking these best episodes up, had more callers call in, different callers call in with different perspectives. And that is what I love. Diversity, a mix of us all, because guess what? Inside, we all the same. We pump blood, we breathe air, and we live on this blue ball. So big shout to you all. That's another episode.